Hi, Milo and Kayla. I'm going to read to you a book that was my book when I was a little girl. I want you to know, if you look really carefully, you'll see the letter M for Margaret. Now for Mimi. It could also be for Milo. What do you think this book is about? There's eggs, and their eggs are cracking, and then, I don't know. This book is actually older than me. It was first published way back in 1941. That's almost as old as my mother. It's called Way For Ducklings by Robert McCloskey. I've sent you a copy. Hopefully it'll get to you soon and you can read along and see the pictures better. Mr. and Mrs. Mallard were looking for a place to live, but every time Mr. Mallard saw what looked like a nice place, Mrs. Mallard said, no, it was no good. There were sure to be foxes in the woods or turtles in the water, and she was not going to raise a family where there might be foxes or turtles. So they flew on and on. When they got to Boston, they felt too tired to fly any further. There was a nice pond in the public garden with a little island in it. The very place to spend the night, quacked Mr. Mallard. So down they flapped. Look, see, here's the pond. This is in Boston. Mimi has been there. So has your daddy, I think, and Grandpa, and we have seen these ducks. Next morning, they fished for their breakfast in the mud at the bottom of the pond, but they didn't find much. Look, here they are digging in the pond. They don't find much because it's not a pond fed by a stream. Just as they were getting ready to start on their way, a strange, enormous bird came by. It was pushing a boat full of people, and there was a man sitting on its back. Good morning, quacked Mr. Mallard, being polite. The big bird was too proud to answer, but the people on the boat threw peanuts into the water. So the Mallards followed them all around the pond and got another breakfast, better than the first. I like this place, said Mrs. Mallard, as they clucked and climbed on the bank and waddled along. Why don't we build a nest and raise our ducklings right in the pond? There were no foxes and no turtles, and the people fed us peanuts. What could be better? Good, said Mr. Mallard, delighted that at last Mrs. Mallard had found a place that would suit her. But what do you think's going to happen? What do you see coming towards the Mallards? I think something's going to happen. Look out, squawked Mrs. Mallard. Whack! You'll get run over. And when she caught her breath, she added, this is no place for babies. With all those horrid things rushing about, we'll have to look somewhere else. So they flew over Boston Hill and around the State House, but there was no place there. They looked in Louisburg Square, but there was no water to swim in at all. Then they flew over the Charles River. This is better, quacked Mrs. Mallard. That island looks like a nice, quiet place. See the island and the river? This is where your Auntie Miriam learned to sail, by the way, the Charles River. That island looks like a nice place, and it's only a little ways away from the public garden. Yes, said Mrs. Mallard, remembering the peanuts. That looks like just the right place to hatch our ducklings. So they chose a cozy spot among the bushes near the water and settled down to build their nest. And only just in time, for they were beginning to molt. All their old wings feathers started to drop out, and they would not be able to fly again until the new ones grew in. See, here's Mrs. Mallard sitting on her nest, and here's Mr. Mallard checking for fish, I think. But of course they could swim, and one day they swam over to the park on the riverbank, where they met a policeman called Michael. Michael fed them peanuts, and after that, the mallards called on Michael every day. Look how many eggs there are. After Mrs. Mallard had laid 8 eggs in the nest, she wouldn't go to visit Michael any more because she had to sit on the eggs to keep them warm. She moved off the nest only to get a drink of water, or to have her lunch, or to count the eggs and make sure they were all there. Look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, I think I miscounted. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think I got it this time. Look, there's Mr. Mallard and Mrs. Mallard. One day the ducklings hatched. First came Jack, then Cack, then Lack, then Mack, and Knack, and Quack, and Whack, and Pack. Mr. and Mrs. Mallard were bursting with pride. It was a great responsibility taking care of so many ducklings, and it kept them very busy. Look, here they are. One day, Mr. Mallard decided he'd like to make a trip to see what the rest of the river was like further on. So off he went. "I'll meet you in a week in the public garden," he quacked over his shoulder. "Take good care of the ducklings." "Don't you worry," said Mrs. Mallard. "I know all about keeping up with children." And she did. She taught them how to swim and how to dive. You both already know how to do that. I've seen pictures of you swimming and diving all different kinds of places, and Milo took swimming lessons. She taught them to walk in a line, to come when they were called, and to keep a safe distance from bikes and scooters and other things with wheels. Sounds very sensible to me. Look, there they are, and all in a row. I think little Quack is not keeping up with the rest of them. When at last she felt perfectly satisfied with them, she said one morning, "Come along, children, follow me." Before you could wink an eyelash, Jack, Cack, Lack, Mack, Knack, Whack, Pack, and Quack fell into line just as they had been taught. Mrs. Mallard led the way into the water, and they swam beside her to the opposite bank. Then they waded ashore and waddled along till they came to the highway. Uh-oh, how are they going to get across? What do you think? Mrs. Mallard stepped out to cross the road. Honk, honk, went the horns of the speeding cars. Quack, went Mrs. Mallard as she stumbled back again. Quack, 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 went Jack, Cack, Lack, Mack, Knack, Whack, Pack, and Quack, just as loud as their little quackers would quack. The cars kept speeding by and honking, and Mrs. Mallard and the ducklings kept right on quack, quack, quacking. Oh no, what's gonna happen? They made such a noise that Michael came running, waving his arms and blowing his whistle. Quack, 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 honk, tweet, tweet, tweet. Here he is running. I suspect he doesn't run like that very often. He planted himself in the center of the road, raised one hand to stop the traffic, and then beckoned with the other, the way policemen do, for Mrs. Mallard to cross over. Look, they've all kind of got their noses in the air, and they're telling these people we are important. Stop and don't run us over. As soon as Mrs. Mallard and the ducklings were safe on the other side and on their way down Mount Vernon Street, Michael rushed back to his police booth. He called Clancy at headquarters. "There's a family of ducks walking down the street." Clancy said, "Family of what?" "Ducks," yelled Michael. "Send a police car quick." Meanwhile, Mrs. Mallard had reached the corner bookshop and turned on to Charles Street with Jack, Cack, Lack, Mack, Knack, Whack, Pack, and Quack all marching in line behind her. Look, here's the bookstore owner and the people buying books. They're all watching. They've never seen ducks walking down the street like that before. Everyone stared. An old lady from Beacon Hill said, "Isn't it amazing?" And the man who swept the street said, "Well, now, ain't that nice?" And when Mrs. Mallard heard them, she was so proud. She tipped her nose in the air and walked along with an extra swing in her waddle. I wonder, can you walk along with an extra swing in your waddle? You might give it a try. When they came to the corner of Beacon Street, there was the police car with 4 policemen that Clancy had sent from headquarters. The policemen held back the traffic so Mrs. Mallard and the ducklings could march across the street, right into the public garden. Inside the gate, they turned around to say thank you to the policeman. The policeman smiled and waved goodbye. When they reached the pond, they swam right across to the little island, and there was Mr. Mallard waiting for them, just as he had promised. Look, there he is. The ducklings liked the new island so much they decided to live there. All day long, they follow the swan boats and eat peanuts. And when night falls, they swim to their little island and they go to sleep. That's all. That's the end. What did you think? I think ducklings are pretty special. Maybe you got some on your walk and bike ride to school. You let me know. I love you both. Goodbye.